Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just don't get the way the world works, or why it works the way it works. But I just cannot fathom the debate behind the issue of legalizing marijuana. It's not that I'm not familiar with it. It's not that I don't appreciate the arguments for or against it. Lord knows I've heard them just as much as everyone else has. It's that I simply cannot understand why, in this day and age, with our modern attitudes, that we still treat marijuana as a dangerous substance, a substance dangerous enough anyway that we should be outlawing it. To me, the issue is one of the plainest, most basic ones in the world. Let's just legalize marijuana and be done with it. As I've said, I'm more than familiar with the arguments for keeping marijuana illegal, and there are quite a few. A large one is the notion that marijuana is a stepping stone drug, and that people that use it and abuse it often end up abusing heroin, cocaine, or other harder drugs as well. Another one is the argument that stone driving would increase the risk of automobile accidents on the highways. Also, some people consider using the drug as being morally wrong. In addition to this, there's the argument that legalizing marijuana would only increase the risk that small children would end up using it. In addition to this, because of drug-related arrests, people who have committed or are more likely to commit more serious crimes are often taken off the streets before they get the chance to do so. And finally, there's the notion that physical damage would be done to users that abuse the drug. These are certainly legitimate reasons, but let's look at them a little bit closer, shall we? Obviously, a primary concern is the fact that marijuana is considered a stepping stone drug. People that use it are often intoxicated by the effects, both literally and figuratively, and this often ends up leading them to try stronger drugs in order to achieve an even stronger form of inebriation. However, this concern is nothing new. Authority figures like parents, police officers, and judges have been worried about the accelerated use of drugs since long before marijuana was ever illegalized in this country. If one wants to prevent young people from using stronger and harder drugs like cocaine or heroin, the answer isn't to throw away billions of dollars enforcing the outlawing of marijuana, but rather using some of that money for drug awareness programs, which, along with actually talking to parents about things openly and honestly, have actually been proven to keep children away from harder drugs. That's the solution to stopping drug use, not outlawing something as harmless as marijuana, but actually talking to them about something more harmful like cocaine or heroin. As for any concerns regarding stone driving, it's a moot and hypocritical point. According to drinkinganddriving.org, nearly 12,000 people die every year in DUI-related accidents. And it doesn't just end with alcohol. There are dozens of medications available today, both over and under the counter, that are labeled as being unsafe to take while driving, as they impair the ability to operate motor vehicles. Do we outlaw either alcohol or any of these drugs as a result? No. Instead, we simply outlaw the operation of a motor vehicle while under the influence of these drugs. A similar ordinance for marijuana could easily be established and enforced without the expense of billions of dollars by the government every year. There is also the morality argument, namely the idea that using marijuana is wrong simply because, well, it's wrong, depending on one's personal moral beliefs. But ignoring the circular reasoning fallacy that this presents, I would like to point out that this country once felt the same way about alcohol. It was made illegal as a result, and suffice it to say, that didn't work out very well for us. It provided an overwhelming base camp for organized crime. But more importantly, imposing moral doctrines onto people is a slippery slope, and one that this country has had a difficult time reconciling in the past. Morals are extremely subjective. Certain atheists find it immoral that the Pledge of Allegiance contains the phrase "one nation under God," while certain Christians find it immoral that the atheists are raising their own children without the teachings of Jesus Christ. So who's right? It used to be immoral in this country for homosexuals to marry, yet we are seeing a growing number of states permitting same-sex marriages in accordance with an increasing level of tolerance and acceptance in this regard. Morals have historically changed and developed with the times, and the times, as it has been said, they are changing. Obviously, there are many other arguments against the use of marijuana, and if I spent all my time countering every one of them, I'd never be able to discuss all the reasons for its legalization, one of the biggest of which being money. In all the arguments concerning why marijuana should be kept illegal, no one has yet to provide a single financial reason for outlawing its use. Meanwhile, it's estimated that legalizing marijuana would save the federal government approximately $14 billion. In a time of economic crisis such as the one our country is currently facing, where our education system is continually being cut away at, the hospitals and highways that our politicians keep promising are left unfinished or undelivered, and billions are being spent to bail out Wall Street, that alone should merit a strong support in favor of the legalization of this drug. Moreover, in addition to saving money, legalizing and regulating the safe distribution of marijuana would actually help generate revenue for our country. A recent California politician estimated that marijuana sales in his state may have reached as much as $14 billion. This means that, had marijuana been legalized and taxed, it could have generated as much as $1 billion for the California government. And anyone who lives in California right now will tell you just how badly that money is needed. Imagine the revenue generated across the country on both state and federal levels if this already widely used and distributed drug were regulated. And as if money were not incentive enough, there are the additional health concerns. For years, a growing number of medical experts have pushed for the use of medical marijuana, citing any number of effects such as improved appetite or decreased pain in their patients as proof of the value of this drug in treating certain medical conditions. Now, while there may be admittedly other methods for achieving these effects, they often involve drugs that are simply more expensive and less effective. In fact, prior to its being outlawed, cannabis was used in the production of dozens of legal and prescribed medications in this country. But more to the point, the medicinal properties of marijuana have become so widely known and recognized that as many as 60 U.S. and international health organizations now support granting patients immediate legal access to medical marijuana under a physician's supervisions. Doctors today recognize the value of marijuana in combating the symptoms of pervasive and debilitating diseases such as HIV, dementia, glaucoma, and even the formation of malignant tumors. Of course, opponents to marijuana legalization know how to play the health card as well by citing the various negative effects of marijuana, arguing that the abuse of marijuana could lead to any number of health problems for the users. But what they fail to ignore is that while this may technically be true, so what? Smoking causes cancer, drinking alcohol can lead to liver damage, eating too much pizza makes you obese, the list is endless. Any substance, when abused, more than likely will cause some form of health risk. Nevertheless, we afford the citizenry of this country a certain choice, with the understanding that they assume all the risks entailed with that choice. We afford this luxury in the case of alcohol, tobacco, and yes, pizza even, despite the fact that there are still thousands, if not millions of people that abuse this choice. Why not with marijuana? If a grown, consenting adult is aware of the health risks and chooses to assume them, then let them. And if one really wants to examine those health risks, the data is surprisingly disarming. As it turns out, more people have died in this country of Ritalin overdose than from marijuana overdose. This is, of course, due to the fact that in the entirety of the United States history, not once has there been a single case of death by overdose of marijuana. There have, of course, been multiple instances where marijuana use may have been incidental or even contributory, but none where the subject overdosed directly from use. This technically makes marijuana safer than any drug on the market, including even cough syrup, which it turns out teenagers are actually getting high off of as well, according to an article by the LA Times. And finally, when one examines our culture, one wonders whether or not the legalization of marijuana hasn't already been promoted all across our society. Are we as a nation not ready for marijuana to be sold and distributed legally, and have we not been saying as much for some time now? Marijuana paraphernalia is perfectly legal in this country. We sell bowls, bongs, t-shirts, advertising, and even boasting of smoking. We have countless movies and TV shows where marijuana use is seen and even advocated. Numerous musicians like Bob Marley, Tenacious D, Ella Fitzgerald, Sublime, the Beastie Boys all have sung songs about smoking marijuana. On and on and on it goes. More and more in this country, we are seeing the recreational use of marijuana being celebrated rather than demonized. When one looks at the overwhelming evidence, we find that more and more we are running out of reasons to legalize marijuana use in this country. We try and try to fight it, and yet at the same time, we turn around and see the overwhelming hypocrisy of it. Countless substances far more dangerous are widely available on the market, yet we spend billions of dollars outlawing it while we turn around and celebrate its use in our popular media. We have medical experts running around and screaming of the health risks of abusing it, yet we have more and more experts crying out for the health benefits of this drug and urging that their patients who are suffering from all manner of health problems be allowed to take it in order to relieve their pain, improve their appetite, and so on and so forth. Money, medicine, popular opinion, common sense, all of them seem to argue unequivocally that marijuana should be legalized and should be made available to the public. In a time when our country is at a crossroads and we are plagued with endless debate over the good of our nation, this seems to be one of the simplest, most obvious, and sanest choices that we can make. Perhaps it's not one of the most pressing matters facing our country at this hour, but more and more it seems to be one of those things we simply don't need to be worrying about, and we shouldn't. Let's give ourselves just the slightest amount of relief and just pass the bong around the room. God knows all the cool movie stars and musicians are already doing it, and it sure as hell beats getting high off of cough syrup.